All right, everybody, this is Sheets, and we're going to be going over the golf slate for this weekend, and we're very happy to have RickRunGood on here. We had him here about a year ago, and as you guys know, like part of the mantra of our site here is TrueDFS is true transparency, and I always want to just be upfront about what I do and the types of research I do and the people that I respect and what I like to do to generate my research. And right from the beginning, I've been very, very open about how much I respect Rick's site, Rick's work, his motivations, his honesty, and all this stuff. And that's why when I go through our plays, I'll even go and say, listen, by the way, this one, it's not even showing up in my model at all, but it's just kind of a Rick play, and that's good enough for me. And so Rick is definitely one of the good guys. He's developed quite a following nationwide now, and I'm very happy that he's here. I have up here his site, RickRunGood.com. I can't recommend this enough. I am actually a paid subscriber myself, and I've been that way for quite a while. And this is really just about the best there is, especially, which again, I'll say this again, how you do this by yourself is just completely ridiculous. Like between Bobby, me, and like 4 other people, we it's like impossible to keep up with everything. And
yeah, and I know just enough to be dangerous, which is always a scary thing, right? But yeah, I appreciate the nice words. And one of the things that I thought that you said so perfectly there is, finding the right process for you, right? And what works best for you. That's what I always encourage people to kind of do. It's an opportunity to say, okay, how deep do I want to dive into this? What stats am I looking for? And everybody's process is a little bit different, which is kind of what's exciting about this. And it's always good to chat with you guys about different processes.
Well, what's neat is, and I'm going to shout out to one of our subscribers, Adam Perry, who asks very, very intelligent questions in Discord all the time. And the reason why I want to bring this up with you right away before we even get into this, he, one of the things that I do with TrueDFS is I'm a kind of a projection junkie, and I start with projections, then I kind of work outward from there. And so I download like projections from all over the industry, and everybody's projections have been back tested for accuracy. People have been given overweight, underweight ratings by me. I really like doing it. Ownership projections and all this stuff. And Adam was asking me specific to golf for a little more drill down. He was saying, is it possible that maybe in certain events, the make cut percentage, even as a drill down of the work, matters a little bit more. And the reason why I bring it up is one of the things that separates Rick's site from some of the others is there are some sites that if you go into their projections, they'll say, okay, you can overweight, course fit, a little bit more, whatever. But what Rick's thing does is if you go to is that the Holy Grail or the cheat sheet?
Yeah. So the Holy Grail will give you access to like every single round ever.
No, but
the model will let you kind of add your weights in there.
Yeah. So like if you wanted to, like if you wanted to build like projections or build lineups using a custom model, it'll allow you to weight like different things as much or as little as you want. And that's relative to course fit, and it's relative to whatever. So the reason why I bring it up is, again, this is the one site that I've seen that it kind of lets you do that. So more shout outs to Rick as far as that goes. So let's get into this. And what we like to do is we like to go through tier by tier, and we'll go over who we like and all this stuff. And the first thing I will mention, I want to ask you, this is a full regular two-day cut event, right?
Correct. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a smaller field. It's not the full 154.
I was going to ask.
Right? Yeah. It's like 134, 132, whatever they'll finally finish up with. But yes, 2 rounds cut on Friday afternoon, as we would normally expect, which is basically going to be the case, for the vast majority of the rest of the season. Okay. So let's say that the 10K range, I mean, who would be your favorites? Who would you be avoiding? I'll start with you, Rick. Yeah, so it's a fascinating range, right? And they're every single one of these guys is in the $10,000 range for a reason, because they're all playing really well, or they're all very highly sought after. I think that if you're building a fantasy lineup and you're trying to win all the money, there is a very strong argument that your anchor should be Patrick Cantlay, who's $10,700. I have him checking in at about 11% ownership compared to some of the other guys that are probably going to rival 20 and 25%. And Cantlay because he's boring, because he doesn't do anything sexy. I think people just don't like to kind of roster him. And when you get names like Justin Thomas here and Victor Hovland's back in the field, they're a little bit more exciting. But Patrick Cantlay is literally alone in his own tier. It's John Rahm has been the best player in the world statistically for the last year. Patrick Cantlay by himself in second, and everybody else 3 through 1,000. So I think if you're trying to win all the money, Cantlay is the most optimal path to get there.
What do you think? What do you like, Bob?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, I mean, I've watched Rick's videos on, the free videos on this for show so far. I do it every week, and speaking to the process, I really appreciate everything because it's definitely helped me out for somehow without knowing anything about golf. Not only have I turned into an incredible golf fan, I've actually been doing very well. But a lot of it's thanks to your content.
Thank you.
And I've got some friends that are big subscribers that absolutely love golf that I take their opinions on. So anyway, that's just to get that out of the way. But I always want to play Rahm, and I mean, Rick's mentioned it before, and as have others. Sometimes it does feel like the gap is widening a little bit this week in pricing. But I mean, it does feel like you could argue that he should be like a couple thousand more than anybody else if you relate it to another sport, just with the consistency. The upside, everything. I'm leaning. I mean, my natural lean was going to go to him, but it's going to be so high owned that I love the idea of playing Cantlay at lower ownership than these guys who didn't play all that well last week and still finished. What was he, T4 or was he 4 alone? I think that he literally didn't play that well. I know it was a weaker field, but this feels like a good spot to do exactly what you said. I was thinking that Matsuyama was going to end up being a little bit lower owned, but I guess his history here is probably keeping him a little bit higher. So those were the 3 guys I had the most of. Obviously, I love Justin Thomas. I just feel like you got to make a stand somewhere. And I hate the idea of like fading Hovland and Thomas, but that's sort of the route I'm leaning right now. Because I think all of these guys you can make an excellent case for.
That gap you mentioned, Bobby, I think it's a really astute point, because if you look at the fantasy pricing versus odds the outright market, John Rahm should probably be more expensive. Now, I think there was a $400 gap between him and the second most expensive golfer at the Farmers. Now it's $600, but you could argue he should be over 12,000. I'm pretty firm on if you're trying to get exposure to John Rahm at a golf tournament in this current moment, the best way to do it is via DFS lineups instead of betting him outright, just because of the nature of both of those things. But I think it is very astute to keep an eye on what that gap between John Rahm and the rest of the field is going to be moving forward.
So this is the way I play. So what we do is I reduce everything, all the projections down to whatever. I put my own value scores on it, and then I just kind of visualize it. So I have these guys in the 10K range. And what I just look at is, okay, which of these guys, like you said, is going to be the lowest owned? Because I have Rahm as rated the best, and his ownership is pretty much covering that. I have him about 23%, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I have Cantlay as like the second best of this 10K range, and I have him as clearly the lowest owned of the group. Even weighting, some of the other sites even higher, I still have him barely at 14%, like compared to like a 23 and up for Rahm, 20 for Thomas, 20 for Hideki, and 20 for Hovland. So for me, I mean, they're all probably decent plays, but for me, if I can't get to Rahm and I could play Rahm, I agree with you. I have Cantlay as my favorite in the 10K.
Yeah, I think the lack of history around here, and the fact that we've seen Cantlay more recently, I think people are just ready to try something new, and like he's just as likely to win this as any of those other guys. It's pretty crazy what he's been up to.
Let's start. Let's start with Bobby. What do you like in the 9K?
So I'm struggling with this Daniel Berger thing, and maybe Rick can shed some light on it, because I think the perception of someone withdrawing for a back injury is going to keep the ownership extremely low on him. And it feels like a good course fit. He's got, I think he's 4 top 11s in his last, 7 trips here. And I think that this is a spot where I would want to attack that, even with some concerns about the injury. His 2 tournaments, last 2 tournaments, he was 5th and 20th, I believe. I just feel like at low ownership, I want to attack that. It's probably the first time we've had the low ownership on Berger situation at all sheets. The whole time we've been doing this. So I really like Berger. Scheffler is the one who makes the most sense, but again, the ownership is going to be out of control on him. So it's also going to be another reason why people don't play Berger. I like my natural lean are Burns, Berger, Scheffler, but Berger is a lot to do with the ownership. Those are the 3 main ones I'm focusing on. And I don't have, I'm sort of curious, Rick's thoughts, before he just about Berger and his status.
Yeah.
But that's what
So
I was thinking.
Bobby, I'm kind of on a similar page with you. Daniel Berger is like your slate breaker opportunity this week, which is a guy that legitimately has been elite for the last 50 or 100 rounds. If you look at the last 50 rounds for everybody in this field, only one guy is gaining more than a stroke per round on approach. His name's Daniel Berger. Also, this is both statistically and when you look at the eye test, a course at TPC Scottsdale that really lends itself to the second shot golfers, those approach players, and Berger's been better than everybody here for the last 6 months. The withdrawal on Wednesday night last week, yes, will definitely impact a lot of people's perceptions and will definitely temper expectation a little bit. I tend to think that because he showed us he would withdraw on a Wednesday night instead of waiting till Thursday morning or whatever, I'm actually thinking it's not overly unsafe to start getting access to Daniel Berger. If he doesn't feel well on Wednesday night, maybe he just pulls out again. If he plays, I think he plays all 4 rounds or whatever it's going to take, unless, he gets an awkward lie in a desert or something like that. But I agree with you. I think Berger is incredibly fascinating here. And a lot of people are going to overlook him for the Scotty Schefflers of the world. And the other guy in the 9K range that I think is, probably a little underpriced is Xander Schofley. He's $9,700. He kind of has this distinction of, maybe not winning as much as he should. And since the Olympics, he's been fine, but Xander's fine is better than a lot of other golfers in the field. And if he goes out and has a good week like he's had here in the past, I think he is someone that could significantly outperform his salary price.
So any other thoughts on 9K, Rick, before I take this?
Ask Rick about one more guy, because I was going to ask you about Bubba Watson here. We talked a little bit about him earlier this week, and then I just was curious your thoughts on him. I know he's going to have fairly low ownership here, and just sort of wanted your general thoughts on Bubba.
Yeah, cautiously optimistic. I think that with Scotty Scheffler is eating up a lot of the ownership in that $9,000 range. I think Bubba will check in eventually when this thing kicks off. 10 to 14%. It won't be crazy because Scotty Scheffler is there, but this is a really good stretch for Bubba. He gets to play here at Phoenix, where he's done everything but win. He gets to go to Riviera next week, where he's been, that's a true Bubba course, and he played well in Saudi Arabia last week. So I think this is the time to buy. I'd probably argue he's $500 too expensive, but this is a situation where this 3-week stretch, and we've already seen one of them, is probably the best time to buy Bubba in before we get to Augusta National. So yeah, I'm pretty bullish on what Bubba can do this week.
So I've been doing this, especially this projection analysis for the past a year and a half now, Bobby, right? And I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about what these models spit out, and what guys are always owned, or what guys are always owned more than they should. And I don't believe a word of it. I think that Berger's going to be enormous chalk by the end of it. He just pops in every model every freaking week, and I think in like the bigger buy-ins, he's going to be really, really popular. And I'm giving him like a full 16%. I was hoping you were right when you had your video. I'm like, he's going to be the pivot, is going to be whatever. But I don't know, man. The people just love, the models love him every week. Nobody's going to care, I think, about the injury. I think they're just going to play him. And so with that said, I do have him ranked like my second best, golfer pretty much overall this week. So I'm probably gonna do it too. And that's also considered, you want to talk about biases. I just went for an epidural injection in my back like freaking a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Nobody can sympathize with the bad back more than I could. And if I were playing someone that I had 8 strokes handicap advantage over, and I was 3K on DraftKings, I wouldn't play myself. You know what I mean? If I had a legitimate back issue, okay, whatever. But let's just say this, is that I would just not be too disappointed if the ownership is not as low as you think with guys like this, because they just always play these guys. And the only thing that's going for him as far as ownership goes is, like you said, is Scheffler pops pretty hard too at exactly the same price. So we kind of got to hope that Scheffler just eats up that ownership, but people will play them both. So that's my thought. The one guy that neither of you mentioned, and this is a guy that we played him at like 6K, it seems. And then Bobby I really think that Bobby invented this guy. It was Sam Burns. We played Sam Burns at like 6,500 like every week for like a while, and the guy just keeps on doing it, So he would be. You want to talk about the pivot? In that exact price range, I mean, you want to play Burns instead of one of these guys. Now, then you'll, oh, look, he's definitely a worse play as far as I'm concerned, but you know, it's golf, man. So you're going to get half the ownership, I think, of someone like Berger or Scheffler because of that.
You really think he's gonna be lower owned than those guys?
Yeah, I think so.
Really? Okay. I've got different numbers in front of me, but I'm open. I'm interested in what you're saying.
So do I. I mean, I have Berger only 15% owned. I just think that, especially as the buy-ins go up, I just think that unless there's like a legitimate concern of him playing, I mean, I just think that the good player is going to play him. I just do. That's just my opinion. What do you think? I guess I'll start. I'll start with the 8K range. The 8K range, that one of my top plays, again, this is a guy who just shows up every week in the numbers, and this is actually kind of a funny story, Rick. So I have my own kind of like stupid narratives and stupid thoughts of why to not play golfers or whatever it is, just because I mean so much data driven or whatever. and I was at a tournament. I went to see the one at Liberty State Park over the summer, and I saw Kevin Streelman play a hole. And he was a really bad attitude. He had a bad shot. He wasn't like this. I'm like, I'm never playing that guy in DFS. So every time I kind of joke, I'm not playing him. He's got a bad attitude. Last week I picked him to miss the cut. He missed the cut, whatever it was. So like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and this is kind of a testament to being old too, is that Russell Henley was like showing up as an incredibly good play. And for whatever reason, my brain just froze. And I went on a 10-minute rant about why I wasn't going to play Russell Henley because he had a bad attitude, forgetting that it wasn't even Russell Henley, that it was Kevin Streelman I was thinking about. I ended up Xing out Russell Henley, despite him being my best play on the sheet. And he ended up like doing really, really well. So I can never get to confuse Russell Henley with Kevin Streelman again. So Russell Henley, for me, and look, this is, again, not going to be earth-shattering. He's going to be extremely chalky. I have him at like 20%. He's just showing up as an extremely good play. The guy who I have as the low owned possibility, and I need you to talk me off of this, is Louis Oosthuizen. I have him at under 10%. The reason why I need you to talk me off of him is I don't like playing guys off layoffs, like in general. But at less than 10%, I can get talked in. I don't care all that much. So those are my top 2 in the 8K range. Rick, you want to start?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm not sure I'm the right guy to talk you off Louis, because I'm pretty excited. I mean, you know, let's be real. We haven't seen it since the RSM. He withdrew from that event. I think he played 1 round. He withdrew. It's been 4 months. There is this thing where, yeah, just because we haven't seen a guy play competitively doesn't mean he's sitting on his couch eating bonbons and drinking Cokes, right? It's just because, you know, we haven't seen him play anywhere competitively. Matt Fitzpatrick took a long layoff, came out and finished inside the top 10 last week. Louis Oosthuizen, you know, he has transformed himself into a really one of the best putters on the planet. And the 2 trips that he's had to this event have both been really good. So I'm probably more bullish than most on Louis. When I look at the rest of this 8K range, Adam Scott at $8,500, who has played well recently on the DP World Tour. That's the tour formerly known as the European Tour. Those were both desert golf courses that he played at. Both of them were top 10s. This is another really good stretch for him. He gets to play here for the first time. He gets to play Riviera next week. It's a good stretch of golf for him. And then I think what I'm most interested in what the rest of the industry is going to do is Corey Connors, who's now missed 2 consecutive cuts for the first time in over a year. If you think this is truly a second shot course and one that will benefit those who are playing out of the fairway, Corey Connors is that guy. And I just don't know what the rest of the industry is going to do with him when this thing locks on Thursday morning.
I love that. I mean, that's so I think it's going to be, I'm looking at projected ownerships right now, and I think it's going to be higher than what people are. There's a couple people I know in the industry who I used to work with, Roto Grinders, who have, you know, named him as like where you start your cash builds this week. And I was like, whoa, okay. I was a little surprised by that. Still not showing him with a crazy amount of ownership, but I think it's going to be higher than what he's currently projected. I really like, I think I am going to play Corey Connors and just have a short memory. And just forget about the last couple of weeks. I also really like Webb Simpson here. I think 8,600 for Webb Simpson. And I like the Oosthuizen idea as well. I don't know about Henley at high ownership. I do like Henley, but I don't know about the high ownership. The one guy who is not really drawing much ownership at all after the collapse on basically Saturday and Sunday, Seamus Power, I'm just interested in at low ownership here. Rick, any thoughts real quick on Power?
Yeah, so statistically, last 50 rounds, this is the raw data, so he gets a big boost for like his victory at Barbasol, but he's like the third best player in this field over the last 50 rounds behind John Rahm and Patrick Cantlay. The first, so I had Mark Immelmann on. He was on the First Cut podcast that I host for CBS Sports yesterday. He was with the Power Group on Saturday last week, which is where he kind of had that 74 at Monterey Peninsula, and then he was just never able to rebound at Pebble Beach on Sunday. And he basically described a specific wind and wind direction that was giving those guys at Monterey Peninsula a fit on Saturday that was not affecting the guys at the other courses. And that is completely anecdotal. You can take it for what it's worth, but the consensus from the ground was, yes, his 74 was bad, but it was not as bad as you would think it is on the card. And then he just never got it going on Sunday. So I'm like a 6.5 out of 10 in terms of excitement on and thinking that it's a pretty decent buyback spot on Power.
Awesome. All right.
All
Thanks,
right,
man.
so under 8K. So again, it's so funny. I'm like catching Rick up on the stuff we've been doing over the last year where we go into these 8K ranges. So couple of guys who are just basically model darlings and they always show up. And again, this ownership is ridiculous. Like Aaron Wise is not going to be only 12% owned. I mean, like people always pound this guy. They just always do it, probably for good reason. You know, and I you could talk about the putting stuff you talked about in your own thing, but he's rating to me as a really, really strong play. And the other one who, again, is just always just showing up, and I just keep playing every week except for the week that he won, was Taylor Gooch, right? So Taylor Gooch every week. And speaking of that, so this is that kind of a funny story, Rick. So I do bet like maybe 1 or 2 outrights every week. And I've had a couple of really good ones and a couple of really, really just kind of close ones. 3 weeks ago, okay, or 2 weeks ago, you remember that Luke List and Will Zalatoris tied for first?
Yep.
The week before, I bet both of them to outright win.
As your only bets, yeah.
And my only bets, those two. And the next week,
a week early.
Right. So better up. So I bring that up because that's the other guy I have is I have Luke List. So for me, nothing really low owned in this range for me. It's Gooch, it's Aaron Wise and Luke List. What do you got? We'll do Rick first.
Yeah, I think the Aaron Wise ownership, you're right. It is for good reason. He's mathematically figuring it out. The Taylor Gooch stuff, you could argue Taylor Gooch is like $1,000 too cheap, which is always scary, and it's always good for a pretty popular play. The one guy that I think is super interesting here is Kevin Kisner, who started his 2022 really well, played well at the Tournament of Champions, played well at Wailea for the Sony Open, and was pretty bad at Pebble Beach. But that's, again, 3 courses, Pro-Am, 6.5-hour rounds. There's just a lot of weird things that happen in that event. You could easily write that off. Now he goes to Scottsdale, which has harder than average fairways to hit. He's the most accurate driver of the golf ball this season. You get an opportunity for him to kind of get hot with the putter. You don't need to be overly long around this course. I just think that when you start comparing him to some of the other guys in the $7,000 range, as the week's gone on, I've gotten more excited about Kisner than most of these guys.
What do you think, Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, I have a number of guys I have here in this range. Mito down at the bottom at 7K. I know he just missed the cut last week. I don't care. I'm always siding with this guy, and it's not just because my girlfriend's Chilean, but I get teased about that all the time because I tend to play a lot of Mito and Neiman. But I really like Mito down at the bottom of the range. I like Russell Knox quite a bit. That's another one of my good buddies who is like a golf fanatic, is really high on Russell Knox. The Max Homa, Luke List, Taylor Gooch, as you mentioned. And then the 2 I wanted to ask Rick about, because I know he hasn't looked good the last couple of tournaments. And then the other one is Horschel never really is loved by any of these models, but I think the ownership is pretty low for these prices. So both Answer and Horschel are the 2 that I sort of wanted to get some thoughts on, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Answer, I'm probably going to take a pass on, but I think we're going to get to a couple of courses coming up that are probably better for Answer. You know, he's making the trek back from Saudi Arabia, and that T8 he had last week was his best finish basically since his victory, at the WGC last year. It's been a while. I think I'll just take a pass on Answer. I'm not sure this is particularly a course that sets up super well for him. The Horschel stuff is really interesting because, as you mentioned, Bobby, when you start modeling modeling out a lot of these guys, and depending on what data you're using, if you're only using like official PGA Tour data, you're missing a lot of Billy Horschel's successes. You're not getting the match play victory. You're not getting his victory on the European Tour. You're just not seeing it. So I think that he is generally undervalued. He is someone that has like legitimate top 5 upside, and I don't love the way he does it, which is much more reliant on the short game. But the fact that he's been doing it for 10 years and it seems, that's his DNA, I'm a little bit more comfortable with it. So I do think he is perpetually undervalued just because of kind of the results that he's had in some weirder events.
Gotcha.
I'm going to throw 2 other 7K guys in before we forget. One guy is, and again, this is kind of a stubborn one. He's showed up in the last like several months in my work. And so I keep getting like a bunch of him, and he's never quite done enough, but he still keeps showing up. So I'm going to still keep sprinkling in Charles Howell III. Don't know exactly why he keeps showing up, but I've just learned to respect the kind of the momentum of the models. Let's put it that way, as far as he's concerned. And then the other guy who Bobby plays sometimes, I just can't resist because again, this is the same thing that I do. So if I list these guys over here, I have the ownership over here. When I see like literally a 1% guy, I'll take note. So Alex Noren at 7,100 at literally 1%. I figured I would just kind of throw that one in. All right, so I don't know whether I'm going to steal this from Bobby or not, but in the under 7K guy, I've got somebody. Well, you know what? I'll let Bobby take it. And we don't. The one thing that's
no.
We never talk about the stuff before we do our videos.
Go for it. I want you to start it off.
So I'm going to come up with the under 7K guy, and again we talk about some of our nicknames. We talk about some of the guys that we discuss and. We didn't call Abraham Answer Honest Abe on this podcast because we weren't going to play him, but I will be playing the general at 6,500 this week. All right, Patton Kizzire at 6,500 is going to get some of my money. Now again, he's a big dude, so maybe the course isn't the best. I have no idea, but at 6,500, I couldn't have Rick here without us not at least throwing the general out there at least one time. So that would be, and keep in mind, I don't really like anything in the 7K this week, but if I had to throw in there, I just can't not play him at 6,500. I played him outright against like a field like this. I just can't not do it. I'm sure he's done terribly the last several weeks. I guess that's why he's 6,500. But that's where I'm at. I guess we'll start with Rick. What do you like under 7K?
Yeah, because I probably won't get my dollars, but he definitely is a better DFS play than most other formats because of the volatility in his play. And you could argue that the Bermuda's dormant, but like his Bermuda putting stats are his best. So I mean, there are definitely some breadcrumbs that can get you to Patton Kizzire. The one guy that I have focused on is Kramer Hickok. He's $6,400, and he missed the cut. I guess it was at Pebble Beach where it was the 3-course rotation, but he gained strokes to the field, which is really, really hard to do. It's just a nature of, or it was at the American Express, excuse me, but it's just like the nature of the 3-course rotation and the fact that you can just get the wrong course on the wrong day and you can still play well and you can still miss the cut. But his 2022 start is looking a lot more reminiscent of his kind of 2021 summer, which is when he went to that 8-hole playoff with Harris English at the Travelers Championship. And when Kramer Hickok is at his best, he's driving the ball very accurately. He was 14th on tour last year in driving accuracy. And that is kind of the hardest thing to do at Scottsdale, is to hit the fairway. And then it gets easier kind of from there. So I think we're seeing some really early signs of Hickok being kind of I don't want to call him a contender again. I mean, he's priced accurately, but someone who, if he showed up on the first page of the leaderboard, I would have zero surprise about.
What do you got, Bobby?
I got a few guys here that I'm sort of deciding between, so I actually appreciate those thoughts. Sepp Straka, Joseph Bramlett, Brandon Steele. I do have Kizzire as a guy who I'm going to sprinkle in for sure. I always seem to. He's both helped me a lot over the last couple of years and hurt me a lot. I know that this may not be ideal situation, but I sort of feel like I like the way Thigala's played for the most part lately. And I thought it was interesting to take a shot on him at 6,700. I have another friend who's very high on Nick Taylor this week. Those are the main guys. And then the one guy, the two I actually wanted to ask Rick about the most were about Chris Kirk and just because of the price thing, Chris Kirk, Thigala were the two that I was just curious if you had any thoughts on.
Yeah, so Thigala, he MDF'd last week, which is just unique to that event. So he makes the cut officially, but doesn't get to play on the final day. And he's been trending in the right direction. He's made, if you count that as a made cut, he's made, like 4 in a row or something like that. And he's starting to come into his own. Chris Kirk, I think, has a interesting and high upside statistical profile, which means he's gaining off the tee. He's been okay on approach. The one thing that's really let him down is the putter, but we've seen him pop with the putter at times, right? The 4.7 strokes he gains at the CJ Cup, and he's gained 6 at the Valera. Like, he's capable of popping with the putter. It's hard to kind of predict when those weeks are going to be, but his profile is one, not of a consistent cut maker, but of a high upside, kind of high risk, high reward situation.
I like it. Thanks.
So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do, this is our little thing that we do at the end. So we're going to ask each person who they think is going to win the tournament. We're going to ask best guy under 10K to finish in the top 5. And you could dip into lower tiers if you want. Then under 9K to make top 10, under 8K to make top 20, under 7K to make the cut. And I have 2 others. One is we're going to have a guy over, it's got to be over 9K to miss the cut.
Okay.
And your best overall value outright bet. So we're gonna add that one in. So let's just start with Bobby. Who's winning?
I mean, I'm always gonna say the same thing. So you're giving me what I think. I'm just gonna take the chalk and I'll say Rom, even though I understand that's not very fun.
Who do you like? And you could just say the same thing, but like, what do you
Yeah,
like?
I think it's Justin Thomas. The approach play, the getting better, more consistent with the putter. He's volatile in a good way. I think JT's a guy who just piles up trophies, and this is a pretty good spot for him.
And I will go with Cameron. Under 10K to make the top 5. Rick, you can start.
Yeah, I have Daniel Berger here, right? And this kind of assumes health, right? It assumes that he's all good and we're not going to have any setbacks because he is literally one of the best approach players that we have, and the Phoenix history is good too. So yeah, I'm on the Berger train. Choo choo.
And I'll go Berger too. What do you like, Bob?
Well, I was gonna say Berger before, but I just want to do something a little bit different. Since both of you guys took it, I'm gonna go a little bit of a tier down, and I'm gonna say Webb Simpson.
Ooh, interesting. Bobby, Rick, who do you like under 9K to make top 10?
Yeah, so here, this is where I had Webb Simpson, right? So people think that he had a bad year last year, and by his own standards, he did. He was still 12th in strokes gained total, one of the better spots that you could get him. Pretty bullish on Webb moving forward.
And I will go with Louis at 8,800.
You said Louis, all right. All right, I will now have to be under 9, right? To top, what are we, top 10?
Yep.
I'm going to say, I know it's fairly chalky, but I'm going to say Corey Connors.
Okay. Okay. I'll start under 8K to make top 20. Boy, I'll between these. I'm just going to be stubborn. I'm going to do it again. I'll say Charles Howell. Oof.
I've got Taylor Gooch here.
Yep.
Just the ball striking. Yeah, excited about Gooch. I think he's mispriced.
What do you think? What do you like, Bobby?
So under 8K, I will go ahead and say, who did I have? I lost my spacing there. Oh, wow, that's a really good one. I'm going to say Luke List. You know what? No, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to say Luke List. I believe in his game. I think I catch him on the way up, but I don't even know the details of how it plays this course entirely. I do think you're catching someone on the way up. So,
oh, you know what? I'm a fish. So I forgot someone under 7K. Now I want to talk to you a little about this, Rick, actually, because I mentioned that there's some. Wow, I can't believe I didn't. Sorry about that. So there are some guys I said who were just total model darlings, and they show up every freaking week. And Daniel Berger every week showed up as a top play. You know who showed up as a top play literally every week for like a year was Charlie Hoffman. Okay. Mm-hmm. Every single week at 8K, he was showing up as like an elite play. Like he never did anything, I don't think. And then he was also one of those guys that when the field got a little weaker, he was one of those like 9,300 guys, right. You know, like they would price him up or whatever. And I'm looking at him at 6,700 at 3% ownership, you know? I don't know and he withdrew as well, if I'm not mistaken, last week as well. Yeah. And he's kind of an older guy with a back. So it's a little this year. But do you before I even get into it, because I'm going to remind myself, I'm going to use Charlie Hoffman in this particular contest to make the cut. What do you have any thoughts on him at all?
Yeah, I mean, the reason that he probably popped up in your model is because for that like 20 event stretch last year, he was just a ball striking machine. He was phenomenal. And he wasn't winning, but he was piling up top 20s, which is why I think he's a model darling. Yeah, the concern now is right. He's an older guy with a back injury, which is kind of a scary little thing. But there's a price for everybody. There's an ownership for everybody. So you're talking about sub 7K and sub 5%. There are very little guys that you could argue against when those two things converge on one another. So if you just kind of fingers crossed that Charlie feels good and he can warm up in the Scottsdale sun and all that stuff, like it's certainly not a terrible spot.
Yeah, I'd like to share something with you. So what's your handicap? What are you, a 12, Rick?
I'm a 7.5.
7.5. Okay, so you're a little better. You're a little better than me. When I was like really learning how to play swing or whatever, I would go to Wayne DeFrancesco. He was like a real good swing video guy.
Okay.
There's an incredible thing about Charlie Hoffman's swing that I go watch every once in a while. He like compresses the ball like better than anybody. And this is back from 2010. So that's how long ago I remember this video. So that's why he's probably been able to survive over all these years or whatever it is. What do you like under? Okay, so I guess Rick, top guy under 7K to make the cut.
Yeah, I'll stick with Kramer Hickok here. I just think if he's back to the summer version of himself, it's very exciting, especially here.
What do you got?
That ownership. I usually say my guy Kazire, so I'll just give him a little shout out. But I actually am going to mention a guy we didn't mention before, and that's Adam Hadwin. I just sort of I missed him on my list, but Adam Hadwin is make the cut.
Okay, so here's the hate. Top guy over 9K. This is hard, right?
This is the one that makes us look stupid, right? When this guy wins.
Dude, I had both Kisner and Streelman to miss the cut last week. That's the only thing I got right, except for that one lineup that cashed last week. So if you had to pick a guy, over 9K. I mean, for me, I presume this guy's over 9K still. For me, it's easy.
I know you're gonna say Sheets.
Yeah. Mine's Brooks, right? So if you removed Brooks's name from his stat profile, it's ugly, and you'd be like, this guy should be like $7,100. But because of the name and the winning prowess at this event, he gets the bump to 94. It is terrifying to fade a guy like Brooks Koepka, but I obviously love the stats. I love the modeling, and he just it's bad. It's bad.
Bobby, you know who I'm going to say. So you can just say it.
No, I was wrong. Actually, I thought you were going to say Brooks.
No, I'm saying Jordan Spieth, obviously.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm going to just say, even though I still kind of am interested in playing some of them, is Bubba Watson.
Okay. So if you had one guy, Rick, I have the DraftKings sports book up right here.
Yeah.
And Rick, you don't understand what it's like being in New York the last month. I mean, 3 weeks since it's become legal here. I mean, I spent literally 2 weeks grinding bonuses for people. But it's a freaking zoo here. So it's the ability to live bet this stuff, to hedge against your DraftKings. It's incredible.
Exciting.
What do you got? Just give me one. It can't be wrong. Give me somebody.
I'll give you like kind of like a more of a value, or so to speak. So I think it's Adam Scott at 50-1. So I think at an event like this with a field and a strength of field that's over 500, it really narrows the type of golfers who can win. So I think you need someone with like legitimate win equity, win upside, a kind of a really strong resume. And Adam Scott's playing really well-rounded golf right now. And I know it's the first time he's ever played here, but this should be a pretty decent spot for him. His European Tour success the last couple of weeks is exciting. And I probably don't want to go too much further than like 50-1 on this board and have like real serious investments in it.
What do you think, Bobby? You want to pick something?
I'm going to go, I was going to pick either. So I'm stuck between two guys, but I'm just going to say, I think the odds are reasonable enough on Webb. So I would take that shot. So I was deciding between he and Oosthuizen. Oh my God, Taylor Gooch is 50. That's another good one. Sorry, go ahead, Sheets.
50 Gooch, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say something like that. I'll go with I just can't do Louis off the layoff like that.
He has one win ever, so it's it's not like it's burned you a bunch of times.
That's true. That's true. I will go with I will go Gooch at 51.
I like that.
All right. Well, listen, again, I never have people on here or promote sites that I don't do myself. And for those of you that have been living under a rock and have not been following Rick, I strongly encourage you to go to RickRunGood. First of all, his YouTube channel, you get like a lot of free stuff. And I still think that he gives too much away for free, like most people do. But there's premium stuff on his site, which is certainly worth diving into as well. And I subscribe with my own money, and we get literally nothing from referring it. So it's 100% transparent honesty. And follow him on Twitter. He does live streams. He's the hardest working man in show business, so to speak. So good luck to everybody. Rick, anything else?
No, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a blast when we get to connect like this. Thank you.
All right. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck.